There is no hood like parenthood. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. Now, if I had $1 every time I heard, gee, you have your hands full. On my show, I interview change makers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, which I call our mom sense and dad sense. I've had the privilege of working with Mom 2.0, March of Dimes, and the White House, and have had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton.
It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
That's Total Mom Sense is a production of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube so you never miss an episode. To join my tribe, visit that'stotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. Now let's dive into today's episode. After my 2 C-sections and giving birth to 3 kids, I've always felt my body wasn't my own. I struggled with my weight throughout motherhood and finally lost over 20 pounds, and I feel like myself again. It took about 7 years, and I just want all those who are listening right now who feel unhappy in your skin to know that this is just a blip in time and you will get back to who you always were, but a 2.0 version of that. I think what was most unforgiving for me during that time, though, was after my twin pregnancy, when I just didn't want to buy clothes that were that size. I didn't want to stay that size, and I just never shopped or felt the urge to refresh my wardrobe. Now, I just learned about a brand called Mommabear Workwear, which is made for us. The fabrics are so comfortable and they stretch. I'm wearing one of the pieces right now, and you can wear one size and know that if your weight fluctuates and goes up or down a bit, that piece is still gonna fit. What's more is the design. Each piece is so chic and ideal for the boardroom, to nights out, to meetings. You could even rock it at drop-off. Founder Lee Evans Lee is a 5th-generation rancher from West Texas. Based in San Antonio and Aspen, she blends her passion for textiles and design with a commitment to creating stylish, functional, and machine-washable apparel. Mrs. Mommabear has been featured in Forbes and Elle, among many other publications, and Lee's brand empowers individuals to embrace both comfort and elegance in our everyday lives, all while driving positive change in the community through her charitable initiatives. I am so excited to welcome Lee Evans on That's Total Mom Sense today.
Hi, good morning. I'm so happy to be here.
Of course, of course. This is such a pleasure to have you on. I'm so excited for our community to get to know you, the mom behind Mrs. Mommabear, and and how it all came to life. But to start, I love to set the stage with who the young, carefree Lee was as a kid.
When I think of my childhood, I think of the word freedom. I have an older brother, and we were raised in San Antonio, Texas. This is where we were educated, in the big city. And both of our parents are from really small towns in Texas. And one of them being Rock Springs, Texas, where my mother was raised on a ranch there. And so we spent our time going back and forth to the ranch. And so, you know, it was really a life of going to school. Education was number one in our family. And then we worked on the ranch. And so I was surrounded by people that dreamed, that worked really hard, but nobody talked about it. Their words were in their actions. And that was my life. And I look back on that, and I really didn't know the impact that it was making on me. But even to this day, sometimes I have days where, you know, since I am in front of the camera a lot and doing lots of interviews, I think, gosh, I'm so tired of talking, because I'm really a believer that it's in what we do. You know, what we do and how we live are the words, is the life that we give back to our families and to the world.
100%. Oh, I love that. And would you say this is one of the life lessons you're passing on to your son?
Absolutely. Being a mother is the joy of my life. I have an 11-year-old son, and I'm a firm believer that children do what we do and not what we say. I'm so grateful that I have that literally moment by moment accountability. I'm a huge sports fanatic. And so, I always say like every day is Wimbledon and every day is the Super Bowl. Being a parent is not a dress rehearsal. We don't do it perfectly, but how I live is what he will learn from. So yes, it is one of the major things that I'm trying to pass on, and that you have those ups and downs and not to pretend. In the messiness of being an entrepreneur and a mom and just living, there's such a beauty to it. And that's another example that I'm really living for him. The way I grew up and being on the ranch was, we make our own beauty. And that's really reflected in the line. My grandmother was a huge influence on me. The ranch is in the middle of nowhere, and it is goats and rocks. And there was no reason for her really to put her makeup on and put her curlers on every night and spritz her Chanel No. 5. And yet she did. And what it taught me was, again, in this just a being, just a presence, this love of life, and that we make our own beauty. And, that still runs kind of chills up my spine to know, and the gratitude I have for being taught that no matter where we are in the world, whether it's in the middle of nowhere on a ranch or in the city or an apartment or a house or in the country, I make my own beauty every day. And for me, creating this line was an opportunity for women to express how we are inside on a daily basis, and having another option. I really felt like I was being pigeonholed. I either had to choose luxury or I had to choose comfort. And, I started thumbing through my closet and literally pulling out my workout pants and going, why hasn't anyone taken this pant and created a suit out of it, because they want that, and I love on the introduction, I do rock it at carpool. I've got my heels on, right now, but then my, high top little Chloe's will come on, and I'll be rocking it at carpool and going to tennis. And there's a mix of all of that. And I think one of the greatest memories that I have, my grandmother, whose name was Ruth. And I actually have a new piece that I just finished creating that is named after her. But there's a picture that I have of us. And I mean, I always tell people, I think, I learned how to walk and then they put me on a horse. But I'm so tiny, I must have been like 5 or 6. And she's sitting next to me on her horse. And I just looked tiny. We had our hats on, and I had a snap down buttoned shirt, and there was pride in living and gratitude just to wake up, to breathe, and how we live that.
What was your motherhood journey like?
I'm a very vivid dreamer, and I started having a dream, and to this day that I know was my son, probably in my 30s, that we were walking in a wheat field somewhere, and I knew I was going to be a mother. I have always worked my whole life. Before I launched the brand, mainly in corporate America, I was in television forever. And then after I had my son, I actually went back to night school and worked in psychology and as a counselor. So took a really big pivot. When he was 5 years old, I had a past diagnosis of breast cancer. And I remember that the only thing I wished for was to read him bedtime stories. That was the only wish. On the first day of school, he jumped in the car, and it's actually sitting here on my desk, but he handed me a letter and he said, "Mama, I wrote this about you today." And, our teacher had asked to write about someone that inspires us. And I wrote about you, and that's it. If it all ended today, that's all I wanted.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure everybody's crying. I'm crying. It's the biggest blessing in the world. So tell us now about the aha moment of Mrs. Mommabear, because I love that your motherhood experience catalyzed a new career for you. And oftentimes, people think, oh, when you become a parent, priorities change, and like how you kind of show up in the workforce changes and your career ends here. And it's like, oh no, you can reinvent yourself and do something bigger and better. And you did exactly that. So when was that, if you could pinpoint that moment that you were like, I am all in with this venture?
It was during COVID. The house that I live in at the ranch, when I go out there, it's about 100 years old and tiny and just filled with generations of energy and life. And I had just put my son to bed, and I have an old desk table in the bedroom I have there. And when I'm at the ranch, I would always wear just these coveralls. We would wear them since we were kids, whether they were jean overalls or Dickies coveralls, whatever. I'll never forget it. I had started drawing again. I've always sculpted and drawn and painted. So I had my sketchbooks with me, and I hadn't pulled them out in so long. And so they were laying there, and that's when the idea came. And the first one that I drew, which I still haven't produced yet, I keep going back to, but I drew it that night. And it was a culmination of just a plain black jumpsuit made out of workout material. And I remember it just poured out of me. And that was the beginning. And I've always, I always say good or bad, and it drove my parents crazy, but I've always moved by my heart and my intuition. And I've never wavered from that. And that's a very radical way to live and never waver. It takes a lot of guts. So at night, I just began to draw. And I have over 300 designs now. Obviously, we're only on our third collection. Then what I started doing was researching the manufacturing, researching how I wanted to produce it. My grandmother taught me how to sew on the ranch. One of the things we were known for our Angora goats, which is what you make cashmere out of. And so I was around textiles and the beginnings from shearing the goat to what it ends up being on our bodies. And so textiles and quality, I'm obsessed with. And so that quality incorporated in the fit and design was just, a huge, huge deal for me.
How did you come up with such a catchy brand name?
Well, my son calls me Mommabear, and he's my baby bear. But there's also more to it, that the Mrs. I was in TV for a really long time. And so I was obsessed with advertising, and I had a minor in photography. And I remember it was a De Beers ad, probably in the late 90s. And I'll never forget it. But the ring was on the right finger, and it said, something to the effect of be married to yourself and be your Mrs. So that's where the Mrs. comes from, is this love and being married to ourselves. It kind of goes back to the beginning of our conversation, that my love of being has to start with me. And that is, still to this day, a daily process. And yet I have gotten way, way better at it. And I'm very proud of that. But I've got to be married to me and love me before I'm able to give that to anybody else unconditionally. And the mama is, yes, about my son, but it's also, I'm an 80s girl and I went to a big Texas public school and I love public education. My mother was a teacher. And, if you were a sexy mama, that was about your attitude and your living. And, you also talked about, you said this earlier, which I love, is just this internal empowerment, which has to come from us, not anywhere else but us. And how that is reflected, from within out. There's a play on the mama, and then the bear is the true bear and the things that we love, and the mama bear we are, and the bears that we love, and, whether they're our children or our dogs or our neighbor, it is all of that.
Yes. Oh, that's so lovely. I love it. And just the details, the little stitching on the front, on the back, that kind of makes it a signature to your collection. I love. So did that kind of come to you also in like a dream or something? It was like, okay, we're going to go with Mommabear and then we're going to have these icons.
Each time I draw something like the one that you're wearing, Tux All Day All Night, that was modeled off of, I clearly love tuxedos. I love playing with very masculine, frames and, pulling them into women's clothing. And I think that was, my years in television wearing suits and, rocking, all that fun stuff. But it is something that each time I draw, either the name comes to me, like today I have on Lucky Lady and then one of my blazers. And this was one of the first sequin patterns that I played with. But each time I draw something, it's it's just like a download. Like I either know what I'm going to name it, or I know what the bear's going to do, or I know what the front, little play-on's going to be with the crown that you have on. I mean, we're all queens.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
When you're wearing something that I created, there was a love, and that is a season of where I was in that moment, drawing it and creating it. There was deep thought and intention behind everything that you buy from the brand and what you're wearing. Every button, every detail was created by me, was touched and created by me. In the beginning, when I was perfecting the fabric, because I really wanted, women to be able to be in Texas and be in a full-blown suit and have it wick wet, just like they're able to in, a workout room, to Miami, to, you name it, to really change the options that are in women's closets. And so, there were months that I just wore sample after sample that I was trying to perfect the final blend of the fabric. When I say wear with love, I made it with love, so wear it with love.
Hi, this is Kanika Chadda Gupta, television journalist, founder, and podcast host of That's Total Mom Sense.
Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Goss, the Senior Manager in the Education Department at Bright Horizons, and this is
Play Matters with Bright Horizons. On this weekly segment, we're double-clicking on the importance of play and how it's not just a pastime, it's crucial to learning for young children.
I'm here to clear up your misconceptions about play and learning. We're going to talk about the benefits of play, the different types of play, how to encourage play even when your child says, I'm bored.
So grab a notebook, the Notes app on your phone, or take some mental notes on today's takeaways and share them with your friends. Listen in because play matters. Today, we're going to be talking about exploring the world of play, but it's important that we grasp it from the beginning. Claire, can you tell us, what is play?
You probably know play when you see it as a parent. It might not surprise you to hear that child development researchers have actually figured out how to categorize different types of play. So there are a lot of different types. The most common ones are free play, which is that child-directed play. That's when you see kids doing something really fun, something that's meaningful to them. It might be active, it might be socially interactive. And the key with free play is that there's not really an extrinsic goal, right? There's not like something they're trying to necessarily accomplish. They're just playing around. Sometimes it's make believe or pretend play. Sometimes it's self-organized with other children. So that's free play. And then guided play is also really interactive and meaningful for kids, but it's a little bit more planned. That is, like, the environment that the children are in is a little bit more structured. And there's probably an adult there that's kind of facilitating the learning. So that looks like you getting out animal figurines and Play-Doh and paper and markers and setting up an activity for your child. That's more, but there's no clear one set way to do whatever you want to do with those materials, but you've set up a learning environment for your child.
When our 3 kids started daycare, we learned about parallel play. I found this to be so interesting. So infants and toddlers are not really quick to interact with kids their age. They just want to play side by side. Can you explain why?
Yeah, absolutely. So parallel play is another type of play that researchers have categorized. And it's important to know that infants and young toddlers are very self-focused for a long time. Probably doesn't surprise me to hear as a parent. And there's a real developmental reason for that. They have to focus on themselves to learn everything about everything, right? So they are constantly focusing on their own actions, struggling to make their own first words, struggling to take that first step. And when it comes to play, they're really not ready yet to be collaborating and communicating with another child their age, right? Those are pretty complex skills. So what happens when we have infants and young toddlers at so-called play dates? I like to think of them as play dates for the adults more than the kids, but you have an infant or a young toddler parallel playing. So they're sitting in the same room. They might be playing with the same objects or items, but they don't have a shared goal. There's no turn taking yet. There's no sharing. So even though it doesn't look like they're playing together in that traditional way, there's still a lot happening. There's a lot of value to parallel play because they are watching everything, right? They're listening to all the conversations in the room. They're hearing language. They're observing the other child in the room very closely. Infants and toddlers love to be with other kids. So they're still observing and watching. They might see the other baby in the room do something with a ball, and then they want to try the same thing, right? They're always watching their peers and learning all the time.
It's so true. I love seeing little kids interact, and they could be in varying age groups, but when they see each other, they're like, "You're my people. I get you." I love that. It's something that's so different from how they perceive grown-ups, if you will.
Yeah, for sure.
Claire, thanks for really breaking down what free play and guided play is. Is there a certain amount that kids should get of each in a day?
Great question. I would say as a parent of young children, your priority should just be playing, having time for play, because we're busy enough as it is without putting additional pressure on ourselves to manufacture a certain percentage of play each day. That said, if your child's in a high quality early care and education program, they're probably taking care of a lot of the guided play for you, right? They're setting up really rich, wonderful opportunities for curiosity and play for your child all day long. And then when you get home, maybe you just set aside some time for free play with you, without you. Let your child take the lead. That's my biggest piece of advice, is let your child take the lead with play.
Yes, I love that. And I think it's fun for parents to watch how our kids use their imaginations and bring things to life. And we don't have to be interacting with them at every moment. Let them just be free. So it's great for parents too, to just kind of sit back and watch it unfold.
Absolutely. Let your child play.
Yes. Tell us about the specific benefits, because I know that they are very science-backed.
Yeah, I mean, too many to list on a short segment. During play, children, again, it's their chance to learn pretty much everything about the world. If you think as an adult how you know that a heavier, bigger block needs to go on the bottom of a block tower so it doesn't topple over, you learned that when you were playing with blocks when you were a toddler, right? So play is when children learn about the world. They learn to make decisions. It helps them learn to think critically about things. It helps them overcome obstacles, right? Your child is going to be an adult someday who's going to have a bad day at work. And the skills that they use to get over that bad day at work are skills that they learned when they were playing in preschool, right? This did not go the way I wanted it to go. How am I going to deal with this? These are all skills that kids need for future success. Communication skills, collaboration skills, how to regulate, how to be brave and try new things. The list is really endless.
Wow. And they can begin at what age?
From birth, your kids are playing. From birth. From day one, you're bringing that baby home to your house and you are playing with them. And that looks very different from a newborn than it does for a 3.5-year-old, but there's still play opportunities even with an infant.
That's awesome. Now, as we wrap, I'd love for us to end on a fun note. And this is our segment called Press Play. So, Claire, what's one takeaway you'd like to leave our audience with on exploring the world of play?
Yeah, I think the main takeaway from today's conversation is really just remembering that there's a lot of different types of play, and they're all helping your children learn skills that they need to succeed in the future.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for your insights today. We're looking forward to our next segment of Play Matters with Bright Horizons, where we'll focus on the power of play. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this week's Play Matters with Bright Horizons segment. To find a center near you, get access to free parenting resources from experts, and tune in to one of my favorite shows, the Bright Horizons Parenting Podcast, Teach, Play, Love, visit brighthorizons.com. Tell us about the fabrics and even the collections. I love the names. Debut, Afterglow, Carpe Diem. What are some of the, kind of nuances to each?
So the debut collection is the debut. It's like, my coming out party. After the debut collection, I really popped in some more colors. I went into sequins. I went into more sexy. I did the first, 3-piece suit with a button-down shirt that I'm obsessed with. You'll see it again in fall. And then the fall collection is love letters, and it's a season in my life and a love of what I found over the first two collections is that the people that have fallen in love with the brand asked for more and they wanted different things. So can you produce this in, black? Can you do, more suits? I'm even going to have the first unisex piece coming in December because of husbands and boyfriends that were coming into my pop-up store in Aspen. We're saying, why can you please produce this for men? And so we've got some surprises coming in that. But Love Letters is all about what my clients asked for. They wanted dresses. We'll be debuting the first dresses in the Mrs. Mommabear collections.
Tell us about how the fabrics are made. It's just, they stretch, they're forgiving.
I have a blend of lycra, nylon, and spandex. And everything is also lined. I created the measurements, how it fits, how it hugs us. I use a software called Clove 3D because I know how to sew. I also knew all the human error that goes into just, basic pattern making and fit models. And again, there's this great passionate intensity for me to give women something that is so easy, something that can fill their day with a little bit of joy, which is who we all are, and make it easy and comfortable. And so fit was a huge thing. Give and take was a huge thing. We all know that, or at least me, I can fluctuate up and down and my weight and being a woman for all the various reasons in 1 week. And I need a little give and take in my daily uniform. And so the fabric does stretch up to 8 times. The lining is the exact same version of the outer material, but just obviously in a very thinner lining fabric. And the reason why I duplicated that was I wanted, even though the fabric stretches, I wanted a feeling of being held in, if that makes sense. And I wanted to give women that capability. I wanted in my wardrobe, but I also want to be comfortable. I mean, I hope that what you're feeling today is you feel held in, you feel that your curves are accentuated where you want them to be. And even though you're being held in, you're comfortable. That was the goal.
Yes, I do feel like that. Yeah, I love that. And the fact that it's all machine washable, that's amazing. So you don't have to send these outfits out to dry cleaning.
No. And in fact, I always tell people, and I'm getting ready for Fashion Week, and I always carry those little tied, we're travel things, because for New York, I'll definitely have to check a bag. But a lot of times I don't want to check a bag. And so I'll throw in 2 or 3 Mrs. Mommabear. And if I'm staying 5 nights, I will literally wash it in cold in the wash tub, hang it up, and then rewear it. And I am also protective of my body and what goes on it. And there are things that we just have to dry clean, and we have options these days, but I want to wash things in cold and hang them up, and let them dry in the sun, and if I'm able to give women that, and I think it's a really healthy alternative, without, all the other stuff that plays into dry cleaning, it's so easy, That was another intention, was to just, hey, throw this in the washing machine, crumple it up in your carry-on bag. It won't wrinkle. All of this ease and comfort to really, again, change the options of women's wardrobes. This was completely missing.
Tell us now about New York Fashion Week. This is another incredible debut.
Yes, it is. I think once I arrive next week, and fashion's so funny because I, for the last, year really have been planning for this. And now my mind's already in 2025 and what's coming out in February that I'm going to bring you all, which I'm like already so crazy excited about. So, because you're always having to plan ahead and just, working months ahead. But New York has had a huge love in my life, in my family. And even though we're from Texas, I spent a lot of time going up there for various reasons as a kid. And I'll never forget the first time that my dad took me up there. And he tells this story that he took me down Madison Avenue and we were walking, and I'm looking in these store windows and I look at him and I'm like, Dad, I just love fashion. And then we rode the little Apple bus everywhere, took the circle line tour all the way around the island. So when I had the opportunity and I knew that I wanted to do New York Fashion Week, there was an opportunity that came forward to have the show in Times Square. And when I produce something and when I'm debuting for the first time somewhere, I want to make sure that I'm able to bring it to as many people as I can. And that's always my goals moving forward. What a better place to do that than Times Square? We'll be the front row seats, but anybody who is on the street can watch the show. Fashion is for everybody. I hope that what you see that day, everyone takes in that it really is a love for people and humanity and creativity, and that somehow, we have to be the change we wish to see in the world, and really radiating that. And I know that seems like a very deep message in a runway show, but that is my intention and the whole purpose. And the collection I'm really excited about, like I said, the dresses will be debuting for the first time. It's a very New York collection. I can say that everything is on a black palette. This was something that so many of my current clients wanted. And so I really went to the drawing board, and it's my love letter and my thank yous to all of those that have, been there and loving the brand from the beginning. So it's my thank you. It's my love you letter to those that have been there from the beginning.
So I wanted to ask what motherhood has taught you as an entrepreneur. Has it made you more effective, more efficient? How has it kind of changed your entrepreneurial journey? Because I think it's important for listeners to know that we can further our ventures and our brands after parenthood.
It's just okay to be disorganized now for me. It's okay to leave dishes in the kitchen after breakfast. It's okay to put my PJs on at 4:00 and pick my son up from tennis and say, you know what? We're going to have pizza and eat in bed and just call it a day. And the craziness of entrepreneurship and being a parent and the constant juggle that I know that we all do, for me, is to be real about it, is to not pretend, and to always go back to a place of I can either focus on how hard it is or the challenges or the losses. There's always a loss and a win in a day. But what I choose to focus on, my gratitude, is that I have the opportunity. That was instilled in me a long time ago, that at least I have the opportunity and I am taking it and I am showing up. I can be handed a million opportunities, but if I never have the guts to go for it, that's on me. Having that accountability and that realness with my son in just a slowed down version. My whole life was so fast, and my life has never been crazier, which is the funniest thing. And yet it's like I'm on slow-mo because there's intention. I know I'm not going to be able to get to all of it. That's okay. And, I'm just going to say, hey, tomorrow I'll be able to focus on that, because I also don't want to outsource those decisions that I want touched by me. And we only have a certain number of hours in the day. And so I'm going to slow down and just give it all time. And then the days that I need to give to me, sometimes I say, you know what? From 2 on, I'm going to bake a banana cake and I'm turning my phone off because that gives me peace. And I need that. And I can't be the best version of the CEO and founder of Mrs. Mommabear unless I give to me. And I can't be the mother I want to be, being quarterback in the Super Bowl every day, unless I can be the best to me. The crazier my life gets, the more I try to slow it down, and go, hey, let's have coffee. Instead of doing the Zoom, I'm going to be in New York, in 2 weeks. Come have coffee with me. Let's have a touch point. Even if it's for 20 minutes, slow down. That's really where I am.
I wanted to end with a fun rapid fire round with you. Just so we get to know just some of your interests and preferences and personality a little better. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning person or night owl?
Well, my days start at 4 a.m. normally, so I get to see a little bit of the night, but I'm definitely a morning person these days.
Your favorite workwear piece in your collection?
Sexy Days that's coming out in the fall collection. It's my long gown dress.
Ooh, I can't wait to see. Your go-to snack, especially when you're kind of working late on your sketches?
Frozen blueberries and almonds.
One word that describes you?
Passionate. Fire.
If you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be?
Winston Churchill.
Favorite book or podcast or anything like that? You're like, okay, this changed my life.
It's by Elizabeth Adler, and it's Leone.
Mountains or the beach?
Run mountains.
What was a mom sense moment that you had? And this is one that really, touches my heart because it's why I launched the show. And I love that you're so intuitive in everything you do and how you show up in this world, because I have that in me too. So we're connected on that level. But our mom sense and, auntie sense, kid sense, whatever you want to call it, is our intuition. So is there one moment you can pinpoint to share?
Yeah, last night, my son couldn't fall asleep. There were storms. It's very unusual for him. And my mom sense is, I'm going to lay here till you fall asleep. I'm not leaving you. I can say with 100% confidence that every second I move from my mom sense.
And lastly, a quote that you live by.
Well, I said it earlier, but my favorite quote is by Gandhi, and it's "Be the change we wish to see in the world."
Anything else you'd like to share with our audience listening today?
I just am so grateful for this tribe that you're building and this format, and I'm just so grateful that you had me on today, and I hope it's many more.
Oh, of course, of course. This is so meaningful to me to introduce you to those in my community, and we're all going to be rocking Mrs. Mommabear after this. And thank you for being a trailblazer and seeing, the white space in the market and noticing that this is going to help men and women feel so confident and comfortable and chic and show up in the world better. So thank you so much for being with me today, Lee Evans Lee.
Thank you for having me.
Oh. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some great takeaways from our conversation. Join my community by logging on to thatstotalmomsense.com. If you haven't already, please subscribe to That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast, wherever you listen, and be sure to rate and review. On socials, my handle is at Kanika Chadda Gupta on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and X. You can also find me on LinkedIn. My episode videos are on YouTube and YouTube podcasts with highlights on YouTube Shorts. Write to me at thatstotalmomsense@gmail.com. My team and I read all your pitches and feedback and are so glad to be in touch. Remember, always trust your mom sense and dad sense. Stay strong, super parents. See you soon.